Welcome to episode 4 of Government Secrets, starring Lee Camp, and also Graham. What's the last name again?
It would be
Elberg. Elberg.
Gary Edwards.
And Graham Elwood. And this is episode 4. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us in listening to your favorite podcast that is on none of those mainstream podcast platforms. We don't believe in them. We say fuck iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify. No, we're working on it. It'll happen any day now.
Yeah, it's a slow
one
process.
of those questions. How many comedians does it take to get a podcast on a podcast platform?
It's clearly more than 2 in this instance.
Clearly.
Not enough. We don't have enough skill to do this.
It's somewhere above 2. But yes, welcome. Thank you guys who have been enjoying the first few shows. Let's get to it. I think we should. So we talked some last week about the black bagging of protesters. Now, this has become a mainstream story, which, part of me is like, that's not fair. That was our secret story we were talking about. Mm-hmm. But it's good when it becomes a mainstream story because it means the mainstream media is actually talking about something important, like fucking thug troops, fascist troops grabbing protesters off the street and throwing them into black minivans like they're villainous soccer moms or some shit.
It's a rogue group of soccer moms that have just started their own secret organization.
Yep, they knitted their own camo, and they're just out on the streets, grabbing
holsters full of red wine, and
grabbing up people. As they throw them into the minivan, they're like, "Just move those cups out of the way, and the baby seat. You can just fold that over and just get in the back." Yeah. They throw them into these minivans that they've rented, apparently. Anyway. The reason we're bringing up the topic again is because now we have more information about it. Some of it you may have already heard. We now know who these nameless troops are that are not infiltrating, attacking various U.S. cities. So far, it's just Portland, but Trump says it's going to be other cities. These are under DHS. They're somehow connected to Custom Border Patrol, but the umbrella organization is Department of Homeland Security, and the acting head of Homeland Security, I believe it is Fuckface Cuccinelli. I don't, parents didn't love him much. It's a terrible name, but
well, it's a name from the old country, Fuckface.
I mean, and he's got Cooch in his last name, so they were just going on the theme, really. Cuccinelli's actually my favorite pasta.
It really is. You put a nice. I mean, I don't know. I like it with a pesto, but maybe that's me.
But Cuccinelli, I've heard 1 or 2 of these interviews he's done defending this practice of completely unnamed, masked fucking militants, paramilitary troops grabbing unarmed protesters, and the things he's saying in these interviews are hilarious. So he's saying they're going to do it. They're going to continue to do it. They're not backing down. But he goes, and some people are acting like unmarked vehicles is something bad, but there's unmarked police cars all over the place. And I'm like, a defense of fascism is not, there's lots of it.
Wow.
That's not a good defense.
Oh my God. That guy, he's not saying, well, I'm going to say something so stupid and let's see if they buy it. He believes that. He made that statement and he's like, yeah, there's unmarked cop cars everywhere. It's like, oh, so secret police forces are good. We need more of them. Like, we need more of the KGB style stuff. Which it's great when the government can snatch up its own citizens and go against its own constitution. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It really is just, it's going swimmingly. And someone else was in my Facebook post was like, you say they're, masked, unidentified people, but they have on the mask because of the pandemic. And I don't think that's the real reason. But guess what? You can still identify yourself. They could still have badges on their chest. They could have numbers. There are ways to identify who the hell you are without, just showing your face. But anyway, I think an important point that is not being made in your mainstream media because, you know, they pretend like America and American abuse started with Donald Trump, you know, like, do you remember back in just a few years ago, it was all fucking sunshine and lollipops. It was just, I would ride to work on a unicorn. I don't know about you. And it was just good times.
Remember when Obama would just basically sent the Girl Scouts down to occupy Wall Street? Is that correct? Isn't that what he did?
Right. The Girl Scouts came and talked us out of occupying any longer. It's how it actually ended. You know, a lot of people don't know that.
That's what happened.
They said they'd give us some of the Samoan cookies if we pack up and head on out.
Well, I believe it was also just, it was super fun up at Standing Rock, right? Like Obama just sent, again, like a bunch of nice people. They set up lemonade stands and just said, hey, would you guys mind leaving? Like, they didn't shoot water cannons at people in 30-degree temperature or anything like that at all at Standing Rock. That was all Obama's just hope and change brigade.
Listen, that the water cannons were done because the protesters, they thought they were very hot from protesting all day, and they were trying to cool them down. It was really a friendly gesture. But, you know, they wrote that playbook of friendly gestures during the summer, and it turns out it was 30 degrees out. So the hosing them down was not as appreciated as it should have been, I think.
Yeah. And that's why we had, Tiger Swan up at Standing Rock and all this other fun, easygoing groups.
And the dogs. Remember when they unleashed the dogs on people, literally? Yeah. But so not only did that go on under Obama, but the law supposedly that creatively allows for these DHS troops to invade American cities is under NDAA. It's the National Defense Authorization Act. And so this was signed into law under Obama. And for all the people that were running around like, I got my Obama pom-pom, it's fine, you know, it's no big deal. But I was reading this, people knew, many of us knew that they were like, look, even if you do love Obama, which you should have your questions, even if you do love him, what happens when a fucking dictator comes down the line a week from now?
Yep.
What happens with the next president? And sure enough, here we are. A dictator's toolkit was handed to Donald Trump, and the Democrats are like, why is he using all the things we gave him?
Oh, I know. The lefts or liberals or Democrats, whatever you want to call them, their refusal to acknowledge all the awful crap that Obama has done and did and set up for Trump is one of the reasons we have Trump. It's unbelievable. They're just like that when everyone went nuts when families were being separated at the border, and rightfully so, that was awful. But those cages were built under the Obama administration. He deported 3 million people. And it's just like they sound just as delusional as the Trump supporter that's like, oh, Trump never lies. Like, do you think people in the Middle East were like, yay, these drones that Obama sent are so much nicer than the ones that Bush or Trump sent? Like, his have rainbow flags on them. Yippee!
Friendly drones. I actually was looking. Let's see if I still have it here. And I was looking at an article. No, maybe I don't have it up. But an article, it was Obama, when Obama signed into law the NDAA, and the title of it was like, with reservations, Obama signs National Defense Authorization. And that's what people liked about Obama, is that you got all the same fucking, or, 80% of the same, dictatorial fascist horror show, people deported, people bombed, killing innocent civilians, more bombs dropped than ever before until Trump. And you got all that except with reservations.
Yes.
They'd always say, I don't like that this is happening. And that made everyone feel so goddamn good about it.
Oh, I know. It's all of it. I mean, like, he stopped the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah, but then he left it open for them to reopen it. That's just like his whole presidency was that. He finally shut down.
Well, and even that was only in his last weeks. That was him being like, I'll do it now because I'm leaving.
And make it look, he's resisting Trump. It's the same thing. He shut down the Dakota Access Pipeline a month before he left office, knowing full well Trump was going to get sworn in and open it back up. So it's just like,
then people are like, People are also like he commuted Chelsea Manning's sentence. It's like he's the one who allowed the torture of Chelsea Manning.
Oh God, and also too, they don't know what commuting means. Commuting, he didn't wipe out her sentence. He just commuted it, saying at any time she can be put back to jail. Oh, and guess what? That's what Trump did. Gee, Willikers, who saw that coming? Like they're so tricked.
Well, and it really takes away the ability of these squishy liberals to argue what they're arguing now. Because if you want to say how horrible these kids, these families are in cages, it's disgusting, it's terrible, you needed to be saying it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You need to show some sort of moral core that is there. It doesn't matter what the face in the White House looks like. And they've proven complete inability to do that. I mean, if you want to act like you have a moral core now about the racist shit that Donald Trump is doing, then you need to also call out Joe Biden creating the crime bill. Like,
yes.
You need to have a fucking center.
Yeah, you got to have some. You can't just say Trump bad. Like, because let me tell you something. And all those moms that locked arms in Portland, I commend them. I commend them, and they got shot with tear gas and everything. But let me tell you something. If Joe Biden is the new president, that's still going to happen. He said he's not going to defund the police. He said he's going to do a middle ground climate policy. He's going to keep bombing.
I bet he would meet with those moms and smell their hair. So
yes, it would be. Yes,
at least they'd have that.
Yes, and they could say I was creeped on by Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, they don't want to acknowledge any of it. Not only did Biden write the crime bill, Clinton signed it into law. I mean, they don't
apparently by Biden's Biden was supplying the pressure to get Clinton to do that. I'm not letting Bill Clinton off the hook at all, but I'm just saying like Biden was a major force, perhaps even bigger than Bill Clinton in getting that crime bill through.
Yeah, and no one wants to acknowledge it, and it's just like. If Obama was this hero we thought he was or whatever, he would have put all these laws. He could have put all these laws in place to make all of this shit impossible for Trump or anybody to follow him up. But instead, he left it open to him.
And the other thing is, people love the squishy liberals love to say that, well, Obama wanted to do all these things, but he just couldn't get it through Congress because they were opposing him and everything. But even if you ignore whatever it was, 1 or 2 years where he actually had Congress, a Democratic Congress, but even if you ignore that, look how much Trump is doing without Congress.
Yeah.
It's all disgusting shit. Don't get me wrong. It's largely not positive stuff, but it's like, then if Obama really stood for those things, why wasn't he on the goddamn bully pulpit demanding prison reform, demanding health care that doesn't give in to our insurance companies, and demanding a better sustainable environmental system? Like, he could have been demanding all these things, talking about these things, making them a national issue. The media would have fawned over every speech he gave, and instead, none of that.
Right, and the outside of the years, what was this, 2010 to 2011 or 12, where the Democrats had the Senate and the House, and even those years where he could have got all this stuff done. Exactly, the years he didn't have control, he could have rallied everyone. Everyone would have been calling their senators and Congress people. They would have been voting them out of office at the next minute. All this stuff would have happened, and we're done. And now, holy shit, the democratically controlled Congress just rubber stamps everything Trump. It's mind-numbing to me to listen to this vote any blue will do crap, and it's like they just voted Congress, and this was the thing I was going to talk about, but I'll bring it up now, is Congress just voted down. So there was a bill to cut the Pentagon budget just by 10%, right? And it failed 93 to 324. 60% of Democrats voted against making this small cut to our nation's budget. They couldn't even do that, which is 10% is a token gesture, right? It's 70-some billion, like, oh no, we only have $710 billion.
It's hardly anything.
It's hardly anything. They couldn't even do that.
Well, and also in this the NDAA that they're re-signing, or that the House just put forward, in this version, one of the things they've added is something to stop Trump from withdrawing any U.S. troops.
Yes, that's more.
Literally, that is what the Democrats are fighting for, to stop Trump from possibly creating the slightest modicum of peace anywhere in the world. And again, Trump is not a peaceful man. He has dropped more bombs than Obama year per year, his military at least, and he would be nuclear bombing people right now if there wasn't someone being like, it might come back to bite us. So this is not a peaceful. It's not a peaceful man. But in a few instances, he's tried to bring back some troops from Afghanistan, tried to bring back some troops from Syria, tried to bring back troops from Germany, tried to make some sort of peace with North Korea. At every step of those, the Democrats, the other ruling establishment have stepped in and said, oh, no, back the fuck up. We're not withdrawing anything.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And they won't even, and it just shows you, because if the Democrats really wanted to beat him in November, they would, rather than just say, oh, Trump, Trump, Russia, Russia, Trump, they would say, oh, he said he ran on an anti-interventionist campaign in 2016. That was, he said he was going to pull people out of these wars. And the Democrats could say he hasn't. He's kept the war machine going. But they can't do that because they get money from the military-industrial complex. That's why they just voted down this defense budget cut.
Yeah. I mean, they're owned by the same people. What we're getting around to, we took the long route, around to the end point here. They're owned by the same people. We took the scenic route, and we get down to they're both owned by the military-industrial complex, and that's what you're seeing here in these steps they're taking. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's horrifying, and you don't see any movement on it. And I guess, for some people their next question might be, well, what do we do then? If, how do we stand up to these thugs that are showing up in cities? And one thing is, it is people standing up, as we're seeing. Apparently the Portland, along with those moms, have actually pushed back the federal troops, pushed them back to where they came from in the courthouse or whatever. There's an article about that from last night, showing a lot of people power in Portland. But also, I think it in the cases where an area has stood up against this kind of thing, it usually comes down to local lawmakers, like mayors, and the few mayors with backbones, and state reps and things. So it's why I don't say don't vote. It's because, yes, maybe the two main parties are largely bought on the federal level, but you can often have a much larger impact on local politics.
No, it's a great point, because all the real change, especially with Bernie bailing and just quitting, it's shown that all of the change that has happened, and there's a lot that's happened in the last 2 months, has all been happening are on the local level. And this is showing, and these protests are local issues. They're protesting.
And these local things then go viral.
Yes.
It doesn't just stop at that city.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's huge. So this Portland mom thing, this has gone viral. I mean, this is just in the last couple of days, and everyone's like, wow, the moms. And Portland is a largely white city. It's a city of white liberals. So it's like all these white moms primarily are like, we ain't having it. And that's your voting block in Portland. So if you're on the Portland City Council, you're the Portland mayor, you're like, oh God. Or even if you're a state representative and your district is in Portland, you're like, oh God, they could vote me out quick. So, and this is we've seen this so many times, like Gail McLaughlin in Richmond, California, small little town, but Chevron literally had people on the city council. She got him out of there. I mean, Asheville, North Carolina just voted 7-0 for reparations for African Americans in that city. That's a huge...
All right, but I gotta say, Asheville is like some sort of fucking bizarre Burning Man town. I mean, you can't... you can't go in there without someone flashing their tits at you and someone giving you face paint, and you can get a contact high just from hanging out in the middle of town.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's a little different there.
Yeah, Asheville is definitely a little different there. But what happened is, I think the smell of patchouli and weed and body painting, it actually drifted up to Providence, Rhode Island, because now Providence, Rhode Island is talking about putting those same measures. They're having local discussions and debates on their city council, which Providence, Rhode Island is not the chakra crystal place that Asheville, North Carolina is. Providence is pretty working class. And so
I mean, yeah, these kind of issues that are changed on a local level or in a city, you'll often see them picked up city after city after city because people realize it's possible. Lawmakers get some cover in terms of like, well, if they did it in that city, then I won't look crazy for doing it in my city, and that kind of thing. I don't know if you remember this. It was like a few years back. It was like illegal for two men to sign a silly federal contract saying they will love each other forever.
Yes.
And then people were like, wow, that's stupid. And then that other people were like, hey, they said it was stupid. Maybe we should say it's stupid.
Yeah, you're right.
And then the whole nation said, yeah, that's stupid.
It starts on exactly. Then all these states went, come on, gay marriage is legal. Same thing with first medical marijuana, which California signed medical marijuana into law in like 97 or 98. And then it got up to 13 or 14 states had medical marijuana. Now we have a handful of states with recreational marijuana. So it's another thing that we're very close. It won't happen with this coked out rapist president, but maybe somebody else will be.
Listen, it's never nice to insult someone's hobbies. All right.
Yes.
What he does in his off time.
You're right. He should be able to do blow and go to tanning salons in the Oval Office. But yeah, you're right. So I think the decriminalization of marijuana will happen federally after more and more cities and states say, come on, because what's happening too, and it comes down to the money, is the, because that's part of this too. So like conventions, big companies, they're not going to go to states that say no. That sort of happened with the gay marriage. That happened with the bathroom issue in North Carolina. All these like the Final Four and all these people were like, nope, we're not going. That just happened in D.C. with FedEx. Got pressure to get the mascot out of there.
How? It seems like things have gotten crazier recently, but how stupid was that bathroom thing?
Oh, I know.
Jesus Christ. We can't have the indignity of man, someone who's born a man who now identifies as a woman in our bathrooms. It's like, do you know what fucking goes on in public bathrooms? You're like knee deep in turds. There's fucking rats crawling around. There's people injecting opioids into their eyeballs in one of the stalls, and yet you're worried that a guy who identifies as a woman is gonna go into the wrong. Oh God.
Yeah, I don't want a transgender person to use a glory hole. I want just a regular man to use a glory hole. Come on. Yeah, it's crazy. The whole public restroom thing, like who cares? But that's the thing, is the pressure. And then when it goes viral, social media, and fortunately the millennials and Gen Z, that they're just not, most of them are like, nope, they're leading the way with these protests. They're like, we ain't having it, because they're on social media. They're not watching CNN and Fox News and MSNBC with the 70-year-olds. They're just going, nah, we ain't doing it. And this pressure, it's like, if you don't reform stuff, companies and businesses are like, I'm not coming there. And then conversely, you're seeing like all the budget surplus that Colorado has because of its recreational marijuana and all that stuff. And it's, I'm seeing some changes that are sort of.
Oh yeah, there's positive things out there. I mean, and I think a lot of them came about because of the quote unquote information revolution that now it gets hardly any coverage, but now there is a full court press by all of our government, like almost to a person, like the entirety of Congress and everything, to shut down the information revolution. To make sure that people cannot communicate so freely, because they found out that when that happens, you know what happens? People like Bernie Sanders do very well in elections. And this was a major problem for them.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. Like, it's going to be messy and stuff, but all this, I mean, I'm telling you, the image of just a bunch of moms arm in arm going no to guys. And what does it say to you, private DHS guy? These moms, these soccer moms, no weapons, no, tear gas canisters. You're all armed up and afraid of them? Wow, are you a pussy? Wow, are you just such a baby that you need to the moms are coming. We need to shoot rubber bullets at them.
Let's not use pussy as a term of weakness. The pussies are the strong ones here.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. They are a bunch of limp dicks. That's what they are. They are just soft, whiskey-dicked morons that can't stand up. It's like, you think.
Okay, now I'm upset you insulted whiskey. So really, you are stepping on a lot of landmines here, Graham. A lot of landmines you're walking into.
I'm sorry if I shamed whiskey. Whiskey is nature's nectar, and it's a pure. It's daddy's truth juice.
Oh man, I love to have a little whiskey and some Cuccinelli. I really do. All right. So on that note. Shall we move on to the next topic?
Let's move on to the next topic.
What you got?
All right, let me bring this up. Government secret segment number 2. I think our sound effects are really what's going to blow this show up.
Yeah. I think they are. What frightens me is I fear that you make that noise a lot when you're just like playing with action figures by yourself.
Lee, this quarantine living alone has its challenges, and if my action figures are the ones getting me through this, I don't know that I need to be judged for that.
Do you play with your Voltron without making that noise?
Yeah, I mean, I give these characters life, and
I am their lord.
I'm their lord, and they bow down before me, and I don't know that I need to be judged for that, So we're going to do an action figure segment later.
Yeah. Listen, my supplicants would be very upset if I didn't do that noise. They expect it of me as their lord, their god.
Lee can't supplicants. Okay, so I didn't think I was going to hear supplicant today. I'll be honest. When I woke up, I did not think that word was going to be said to me.
Well, I used to say that in my stand-up routine when the crowd was starting to get a little quiet. I go, well, for those of you not liking this, at least you'll leave here going, I heard sentences I've never heard before. So
I heard
that
words tied together in a way that's never been done. That was interesting. So I wanted to talk about a government secret. I wanted to talk about the Creel Committee. And I first learned about this reading Chris Hedges' Death of a Liberal Class. It came out in 2010. I read it 3 years ago when I first started doing political vigilante and was like, I need to get more up to speed. I saw Hedges. I got turned on to him, I think through Jimmy. He was on Jimmy Show or something, or I started reading him on Truth Dig. And I found that book and was like, oh, and that book was very life-changing for me.
Yep. That and Empire of Illusion. I think I read those back in around the time of Occupy 2011, 2012. And I underlined everything and was very depressed. So
yeah, you don't walk away with a lot of sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. You don't have a lot of that after reading Death of the Liberal Class. You're like, man. And that's why...
Hold on, Graham. We have to stop for a moment from our sponsor. Lee Camp's new book has a foreword by Chris Hedges.
Oh.
So everyone should check out Bullet Points and Punchlines if you're looking to be depressed yet informed. No, I make it not depressing because I throw in jokes about Cuccinelli.
Whiskey and Cuccinelli. That's going to be the name of my next book. But yeah, no, that's actually, and Bullet Points and Punchlines, which is a great book, and the foreword by Chris Hedges and Jimmy Dore, they're very funny and cool. And Hedges is so on point. I've learned so many things about the history that they deliberately hide from us. Like when he was doing his book tour last year for America the Farewell Tour, and he was on the Jimmy Dore show talking about Fred Hampton, and I didn't know who Fred Hampton was. And then I looked him up and was like, head of the Black Panther Party in Chicago that unified Southern whites in the first Rainbow Coalition. And shocking, he was killed by the FBI. Anytime you unify people.
And I believe he was the one they shot like 90 bullets or something while he was in his bed.
Yeah, they just
because they saw the bed as a weapon. They weren't sure if he was going to use it against them, so they really had to fire a lot of shots.
Well, he reached for his pillow. So what are you supposed to do when a guy goes for his pillow? You're a cop. That's how you're trained.
How many people on this planet have been suffocated by a pillow? So goes to show.
We had no choice. But I learned about the Creel Committee, and this was created by George Creel, and this came. It was an independent agency of the government of the United States created to influence public opinion to support U.S. participation in World War I. In just over 26 months, from April 14, 1917 to June 30th, 1919, it used every medium available to create enthusiasm for the war effort and to enlist public support against the foreign and perceived domestic attempts to stop America's participation in the war. Here's what he did. At the time, I didn't know this, but before the Creel Commission, America was basically, World War I had already started, and it was viewed as this war overseas, and they were calling it Wall Street's war. It was just a war to benefit Wall Street. This is in 1917, right?
That's crazy.
Which, oh my God. And Creel was hired by Woodrow Wilson, and he came up with a propaganda machine. He came up and there was this new film industry was starting, and so these movies were these black and white movies showing how bad the Kaiser was. It's a marketing slogan, the war to end all wars. That was a marketing slogan that was pushed to the American people. Once we win this war, then there will be no more wars. They said. Yeah,
I think people don't realize how much of war is marketing. Is like ad agencies sitting around being like, we're going to be greeted with chocolates and roses.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they're doing this. If you put it in today's perspective, 100 years later, where the media is 10 times more sophisticated, and like we talked about MK Ultra on this show a couple episodes ago, and one of the things they learned in MK Ultra basically, so almost to me seems like it's expanding upon the Creel Committee of how do we influence the public, how do we sway public perception? How do we infuse propaganda? And Creel was like one of the first people to go, if we put it in a magazine, we put it in a newspaper, we put it in a radio program, and then we put it in this new movie medium, people are hearing it all different places. So they think, wow, everyone's in agreement on this. And
so something else I've done segments on in the past is Edward Bernays, who's considered kind of the father of advertising in the sense, obviously there was advertising before Bernays. I think this is around the same years you're talking about, kind of early 20th century to mid 20th century. But Bernays, using his, I believe, cousin or uncle's work, Sigmund Freud, figured out that really ads shouldn't tell people directly what it is that they want or need. More impact is subconscious, or is done with the implication. So if you show us going to war and how brave our young men are, and I'm talking about past when it was only men, but how brave our young men are, and how much we're loved for doing that. If you just show that kind of thing, that's going to get more reaction subconsciously than just saying support this war. This ad brought to you by War Department. War is good. Go support war. So there was a shift in advertising where it became much more of a kind of subconscious implied desires. And Bernays is given a lot of the credit for doing that. And by credit, I mean he's destroyed the entire world.
Yeah, it's great that these guys really planted the seeds of the end of humanity so many years ago. But that's what Creel did. And you're seeing how, as we look at American exceptionalism, right, and how that's been fed to all of us, and especially here with the entertainment industry, which, the CIA has had offices in Hollywood since the late 40s, and they have script approval on some of the big budget movies like Marvel and stuff like that, where you look at those movies, Captain America.
So yeah, the way that works, one of the biggest ways that works is if you want any of these large weapons of war, like think about the number of movies you've seen where someone's in an MRAP, where someone's walking through the Pentagon, where someone's, a shot of a fighter jet, or even just has certain types of guns. All of that has to, in order to get that in your movie, you almost always need to work with the Pentagon. And they have whole departments, like you're saying, that deal with Hollywood. So any movie where you're seeing people drive around in MRAPs or something, like all these Avenger movies, everything, they have, cooperation with the CIA and Pentagon, et cetera. And so really those movies, I mean, they allow some criticism of war and militarism and stuff, but there's a certain level you can't go to and get the cooperation to have that stuff in your film.
Oh, yeah. And that's why it's always in there. And that's why, when was the last time you saw a movie that was really critical of the CIA? I can think of 3 Days of the Condor, maybe?
Right. And there are some movies like Hurt Locker. It's like it wasn't fully positive about war. It actually makes war seem confusing and not fun, and innocent people die and stuff. But the thing is, it promotes the ideas enough of like our soldiers are just doing their best and they just want to help people, but they don't always know how because it's tough over there. And like, it's not, they've stopped doing the thing where like, it's just rah, 100%. Look how awesome we are. And they've started doing a kind of more subtle form of manipulation that makes people just believe that, yeah, things are pretty chaotic and innocent people die, but our troops are mostly good.
Yeah, and you see all the little subtle ways that they do this. I remember when Wonder Woman came out, and I was like, oh, awesome, a female, driven superhero finally. Like, I like the history of Wonder Woman. It's interesting. And when I went to, and this was back when I was doing a movie review podcast, and so I was watching movies every week, and I would go see like big budget releases like this, and it was significant. And Wonder Woman was a really fun, entertaining movie, and great. But the ads they played before the trailers, how movie theaters now, well, before the shutdown, obviously, but we'll play a couple of like ads and then movie trailers. One of the ads, and this is the first time I had seen this, and now this plays a lot, was this young girl, and she sees some kids bullying, and she gets in the middle of the bullying. And then we see her in college playing rugby, and she's a team leader on the women's rugby team. And then we see her in Marine Corps boot camp, right? And then we see her charging in. Because shooting
innocent Afghan people is very similar to throwing the rugby ball.
It's all the same thing.
It's kind of the same forearm muscle. It's very similar.
It's absolutely taking resources away from poor people. And then they show her, charging in actual urban combat, and they just glamorize it. And I went, oh man. So I was so torn because I'm like, oh, here's this movie that's empowering young women. And I know so many women are like, wow, it was so awesome finally seeing a woman on screen kick ass rather than a male, usually a white male. But then I was like, oh, so now they're saying, hey, young women, you need to join the war effort. You can be a hero for America. And I was like, oh, look how powerful the message was. You're Wonder Woman if you do that.
Right, right. You're Wonder Woman if you have the gun on your back and a confused, pointless mission to go after.
Yeah.
If you are Wonder Woman, if you can shoot a sniper rifle at targets of who knows what. I mean, it was kind of unclear, but you're at least we know you're very good at shooting at. Could be a terrorist, could be a teacher. Don't know.
In a war that's been going on since you were 4.
Well, because a lot of what Wonder Woman did in reality is Wonder Woman defended the poppy fields for American exploitation.
Yeah, and Wonder Woman was all about we need a pipeline through this company for oil companies, and we need minerals for the cell phone business.
Many people don't know the opioid crisis never would happen without Wonder Woman, so we have a lot to thank her for.
She's been great.
We really do.
She has been great.
But as long as you've opened this door into criticism of these superhero movies, we might find something we disagree on. I have seen many of them, most of these superhero movies. There is definitely something enjoyable about many of them. And the Wonder Woman one, I enjoyed watching her kick ass. I think the kick ass parts were lovely. I like the idea of a tribe of warrior women who seem to have cut off the balls of all the men.
I like the first part of that, not the second.
But I have to say that when you really pay attention to what it is that movie is about, the warrior female Wonder Woman comes to, Earth in Britain or wherever she is guided around the world by a man who's telling her how to behave like a civilized human. Like she's like a fucking dope. And she's just like, do I use my sword to make phone call? Yeah. And he's like, no, silly lady. That's ridiculous. And so, yes, she can kick ass, but she's a fucking idiot. And I get it, just because she's an alien, blah, blah, blah. But the overall message is like, man will help silly lady get through societal norms,
I think that's interesting. And there was a lot, that's a really cool, and I remember discussing, even debating this on my movie podcast, because there's scenes obviously where he sees women, or she sees women in dresses. She's like, why would you dress like that? That's where he's telling her, hey, little girl, this is how you should dress. And she's like, there's no way I'm dressing that way. So there was some pushback, but yeah, right. That's a very valid thing. And I'm so torn with all the superhero movies because I like superheroes. I grew up reading comic books. I like their big budget, fun popcorn movies, but man, it's so hard to go, boy, did the CIA push that through? And boy, was that, what general at NORAD signed off on that scene? It's just,
right.
It's hard to watch in some levels, man.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It's like often the broader picture is something I could get behind. The broader picture, I think, in Wonder Woman and some of the others is that we're destroying the planet's resources. Right. Now, granted, it's the evil villain's solution is to kill all the people or whatever. But I agree that people that's an important point to hit home. Mm-hmm. I think what was it with Ultron or something? I think the point of creating AI that is smarter than us and can doom us. I think that's an important point to talk about. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of important points in there, but there's just enough of this kind of horseshit pro-military stuff and pro-CIA stuff that will drive you nuts. Like in Black Panther, the only kind of unimpeachable character that really just has pure motives to the whole thing and never once are you like, well, I don't know if he should have done that, is the fucking CIA guy.
Yeah, I know. and it was like, oh boy. And he's like, and again, there's the depiction of the the CIA, good fun-loving CIA gangs here. And maybe you're like, oh, they'd run some secret ops, but it's never like, hey, you're evil. You're doing horrible crap. You've been ruining this planet for 70 years. Stop it. Nobody ever says that. It's like, hey, they got to get stuff done their way. you know, and it's
And you notice, so like in Black Panther, the evil guy is the weapons, black market weapons salesman, right? And it's like, what are we? We're just not black market. We're just up front and center weapons salespeople. We sell the largest, most powerful weapons to the most horrific regimes that are like causing a genocide in Yemen. But no, this one surly fella from from downtown Oakland who grew up on the streets and now has weapons connections. He's the bad guy. That's the only. Well, that's the only weapons salesperson.
It just summed up America's denial and hypocrisy all in one. Like, that guy selling crack on the street corners and evil. But please, here's Merrick Pharmaceuticals to give you some great some great medication for you. And all those evil dictators in those poor third world countries locking people up. But the private prison industry in America is keeping us all safe and free and putting people in jail who have been smoking a plant. So that's fantastic. Right. That's all. So anyway, as we wrap this segment up, learn more about the Creel Committee and what that happened 100 years ago is now in full force today, as we've just discussed, in a military recruiting video before a blockbuster superhero movie that then gets pushed out all throughout social media. And you drive down the street and you see there's the new Jack Ryan Isn't the CIA Great series on Amazon, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, who, oh, by the way, the CIA paid him $600 million to host their servers. There's no connection there. That's just random. You see how powerful it is, and it started with Creel and pushing World War I on the American people.
Yeah. $600 million contract with the Pentagon, which for Amazon is probably small peanuts, but it's big enough to matter. And he also owns the Washington Post, so then you have all this pro-war garbage at the Washington Post. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all linked together, and it's truly fucked up. So, do you think we can squeeze in this? Let's see, the economics topic.
Yeah, let's do one more segment.
Let's see if we can get this in here in 10 minutes. I just wanted to talk because government secrets can be like these specific things, like you were just talking about, specific programs and things like that. MK Ultra we talked about last week, but it can also be kind of a broader sense of the secret is the reality of our economy or something like that. I mean, so like right now in this pandemic, you have not only do you have, of course, the complete botched ability to deal with the pandemic in any way and making America one of the most deadly countries to be in for this pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. That's not a secret. But you also have economics, which is, the economics of the situation, which is continuing to be a crisis. It will get worse. This will likely be similar to the Great Depression. I mean, you have 28 million evictions looming. You have the Richard Wolff, economist Richard Wolff was saying that the largest 1 week unemployment number in the past, 50, 60 years was in the early 1980s. And it was 600,000, 700,000 people declared unemployment in 1 week. And that was unbelievable. Nowadays, we're facing 1 to 2 million every week are declaring unemployment. So signing up for unemployment. So this massive economic collapse and is coming, and they're getting ready to throw people out of houses. The people are struggling. People are destitute, and a lot of people, I think, believe that this is just the way it is. That like the government can bail out some things, but there's just nothing they can do. It's a pandemic. What could they do? They can't. They can only do so much, but we don't need to have an economic system set up this way. Like, if you imagine, let's shrink it down. Imagine 100 people, and it's just a 100-person community, unconnected to the outside world. And if a pandemic came into their community, so you got 10 people sick, and you got 20 others are going to lose their jobs because of it. What would happen in that community? Well, they just they'd help each other out, and the 10 sick people would be taken care of, and nobody would lose their homes. Or if, if one of their homes collapsed, they would just live with the other people. Like, everyone would be fed and clothed and housed. It would be very simple. And that could be on a much larger scale. And it doesn't need to be called, it's not communism. It's just rational, that there's no reason anyone should be homeless. And I think you did a segment on Utah's program that ended homelessness for a few years, didn't you?
Yeah, homeless housing first that they got, I think, it originated in Finland.
Yeah. And basically they just gave people houses, and they found out it saved them money. And now their homelessness has gone back up since 2015 because, quote unquote, they stopped doing that.
Well, if it's working too well, we can't let that happen.
We got to abandon that. But what this comes down to is this market economy, unfettered capitalist economics that does not need to work this way. We have accepted it. We are the fish in the water, and one of them says, "How's the water today?" And the other fish says, "The what?" Like, we're in it, and we just don't realize it doesn't need to be this way. It's insanity. Part of the reason, another reason it's like this is because we've used GDP to decide success in a society. GDP only originated around World War II, is when the term even started being used. And then it became more and more prevalent. And now it's how every society, except for a couple, Bhutan has gross national happiness, but it's basically how every society decides their success. But it's a judgment of production, of consumption, of endlessly putting out and eating our world, where you could have a different form of an economic analysis that judged the health of people and the happiness of people and how good our green spaces are. And that discussion is never even had.
Well, if I understand you correctly, you're a godless hippie that hates freedom. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, that's what, if you take the first letter of every word I said, that's what it spells. Yeah.
So your speech was an anagram or something.
Yeah.
But no, it's such an amazing point that you're making, and I think a lot of Americans still don't. Because right now the economy, and we've talked about this before, but this last 4 months the economy's just been propped up, and all these looming things are coming. This 28 million evictions. And so other stuff we've talked about on this show, like the protests in Portland and the moms in Portland. Well, what happens when there's going to be "we're not leaving our home" protests? There's going to be "where's our food" protests. There's going to be a lot of that.
And in some of the purged history that you're not allowed to learn about is America has a very strong history of eviction protests, people standing up in their neighborhoods and fighting against evictions, especially back during the Great Depression. And, that is history that you aren't going to get in your standard third grade class.
The history books said Christopher Columbus was this nice, friendly guy, and America's the only country that helped win World War II, or whatever the thing. That's just like.
I think in my class they did teach that a couple of people said they were not going to be evicted, and then Christopher Columbus stormed in and kicked their asses.
Yeah. Yes. And Japanese people in World War II said, "Oh, we'll gladly give up our homes to go to these camps. That sounds fun." So it's you bring up an excellent point, because the government secret is the history of Americans being basically lied to about how our economy works, thinking that we're all, and that the myth of the American dream and all this other stuff. And, people in the 50s and 60s were like, boy, if we ever go off the gold standard, we're in trouble. And then Nixon took us off the gold standard, and everyone was like, okay, cool. And we're all, it kind of feels like this quarantine, this COVID, and then of course, the murder of George Floyd. All of these things have existed prior, but this pandemic and everybody at home has really pulled the cover off on all of America's lies and problems and our economic because that GDP thing, that's just we've all been so, it's like, well, the stock market's doing well. Who gives a shit? 85% of all stocks are owned by 1% of the population. When the stock market did great or it did poorly, did it affect your life financially or my life financially? No. It doesn't affect any American, even if you're somebody that has a couple $1,000s in stocks. It didn't really affect you have to have $100 million in stocks for that to sway, oh, my stock portfolio is now worth 120 million, or now it's worth 70. So this notion we've been sold, and right. it's this whole consumer, and it comes down on the local level. It's funny, the stuff that the ruling class does on the federal level and all that, our foreign policy with the war, how that's parallel. We need the way we respond with our military is the way our police respond locally. And it's the same thing. So on a local level, we think, oh, the person with the big house and the fancy cars, they're doing great. Are they? Or are they in debt up to their eyeballs? Because we've been told, buy, get the new, get the fancy, get the big thing. And it's all coming undone. I mean, it's all coming undone. And I think people being locked in their homes for the last 4 months are realizing the human connection and what's important. And as this economy gets worse, people are really going to be confronted with that.
Yeah. And the weird thing is I know we don't have any time left, but the weird thing is if you really dig into these things is you really get to the root of it. Why do we even want the fancy car and the fancy house? That goes back to, what we were talking about with advertising earlier. It's I'm not saying that someone might not want a faster car to get somewhere faster, but why specifically that $100,000 car versus the $10,000 car? It's because we have grown up in a culture that is just endlessly beat us to death with the idea that, well, happiness is that car. Happiness is this shiny thing. And it's really tough to break out of that. It's really tough to say no to a fucking lifetime of social programming. Social engineering. Yeah. We don't really call it that, but I think that should be the term that we use all the time. It's with every ad break, with every Hollywood movie, most of them, we're getting a little dose of social engineering, and it's turned us into monsters who just want to destroy the planet because it's fun.
Yeah, because it gets us a newer, fancier thing rather than, you're right. So we've been engineered to not ask the question, hey, what's best for society? I don't have any kids. You don't have any kids. But we both know that if everybody got good education and free college, that would make our society better. And this notion of well, I don't have kids. Who cares? That's ridiculous. Me buying...
Even the people who have kids say, well, my kids aren't in public school, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Which is, it's a mystifying to me. The cutting your nose off to spite your face is just and these people defund the police and I know cops don't want to deal with the homeless problem. Don't you want to live in a city where everyone has a home and is treated decently? And don't you want to live in a society where unarmed black men don't get killed? The cops can't just murder you. Isn't that what you want? Or are you just well, no, and there's more crime. So don't you want to stop crime? No, I'm just going to buy a gun and get a gated house. Yeah. Good luck, man. Let me know how that turns out.
Yeah. Actually the cops dealing with all these things like homelessness and everything. I'm getting into that in an upcoming episode of Redacted tonight. Because this guy, I don't have his name on my fingertips, but he a former police officer, and he's a professor now, and he teaches about policing, and he put out an article about how people don't understand what police spend their time doing. And he created this chart where it shows how much of their time they spend doing each of these different things. And the vast majority of the chart is filled with lost property, giving directions, homeless people, mentally ill people, dealing with that's the vast majority of what police spend their time doing. And his point is, look, here's why we need to fund police, because what they do is not run around shooting at people. They spend all their time dealing with mentally ill people and homeless people and stuff. And he doesn't realize that, in fact, he's giving the argument why we must defund the police.
Yeah.
Because the police should not be doing all this stuff. If you want people to give out speeding tickets, then have speed watchers that aren't armed.
Yeah.
If you want someone to take care of the homeless people, then have a homeless people helpers that go in to help them that aren't armed. There's no reason the cops should do all these things except for the fact that the ruling elite need a basically fascist force on all the street corners in case they need them activated.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, you find me a photo or a video of a cop putting their knee on the neck of a billionaire, and I'll give you $1,000. Like, it doesn't exist.
I've seen it once, but it was a kinky dominatrix thing, and the guy was in. It was one of those buttless cop outfits.
More like a strippergram, which I'm down with. I mean, if a cop wanted to do that, that'd be fun. Well, all right, Lee. I guess that's.
I think that's the episode. I think we did it. But yeah, we'll be hopefully back again next week. Folks, please share this. Let everyone know that we were available on none of the podcast platforms.
We're keeping this a government secret.
Part of the gimmick is this podcast is a secret of.
If you can find it, congratulations.
For now, we hope to be on the platform soon. For now, you can listen to us on Libsyn, or we'll be tweeting out the links, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we hope you'll subscribe to the various channels. My stuff's all at leecamp.com, where you can also find my book, and my comedy special is at LeeCamp. It's free. It's at LeeCampAmerican.com. And Graham, your stuff?
If you go to GrahamElwood.com, you can get my YouTube show, which is The Political Vigilante. And I cover a lot of stuff, MMT, politics, Epstein stuff, obviously. And then, of course, all my Patreon and social media is at GrahamElwood.com. And my some movies that I've directed and T-shirts and merchandise are all at GrahamElwood.com. And of course, I'm also on Rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. So check that out.
Check it out. Thanks, folks. Until next time. See you soon.
Government secrets.
End of the episode.
Hey, everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.